Is that vibe checking?
I think it's simpler. Vibe coding is coding with a vibe.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you are
Yeah,
vibing and coding. You're not doing anything serious. And vibe checking is just checking the vibe.
checking the vibe. All right.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Spoken in the language of vibe.
Mm.
And
Everything
so
is the
everything is
vibe,
what?
vibe eating, vibe walking, vibe boarding,
Uh-huh.
vibe sleeping.
It's all vibe.
It's all vibe.
Yeah, everything
So
is a vibration. Yeah.
in a sense, Matthew, like what we're talking about, like this whole conversation about the township as a training wheel that breaks apart, and then one enters into the field afresh as their own independent agent, is to get individuals into a position that they speak vibe, right? That they're moving by a felt sense, by an intuition, and it really simplifies the whole process for them because they're in tune with the vibe of that field. And then it's just they build from there, right? They build from that state. But the bottom layer, the baseline, it's just speaking the language of vibe, and it requires the breaking down of the training wheels so that they don't get in the way of the vibe. Right? That those can't we can't be attached to them in the same way, but we got to be deeply attached to them to learn their lesson, and then detach from them to get in the vibe.
Yes. Okay. Um, Speaking of checking the vibe, um, I find myself wanting to reestablish the, well, the the container we are in currently, I suppose. Um, I find myself knowing that we've gone on quite a journey already. Um, Quite literally, in my case, as I had my son drive us all the way around. He's got this cool app on his phone that maps where you've been while that app is open.
Uh-huh.
And so it's kind of become his gamification of the process of learning how to drive, that he wants to get as many little geo tag markers
Okay.
uh, on that app as possible. And so he was just filling in his map as we went. And as he filled in his map, I began to fill in my map of um, emerging into an awareness of freedoms, I think is the best way I can think of saying it. Um, that I'm more aware of the freedoms I have to play with than I was prior to James's declaration.
Mhm.
And that you picked up that, and we've been playing with it. We've been playing with freedoms.
Mhm.
Um, just
Mhm.
as, I mean, in a very real way, you know, we've been talking about completing the pattern for a long time, but I've just continued to go along that cycle over and over and over again. And to finally stop and do an about face and start using the project, for instance, on uh, not Project Township, but on what's it called? Um, Substack,
Mhm.
is an emergence into the freedom of the away from just continuing that cycle constantly and into the freedom of expressing the things that have kind of been building up in me for a while now. Something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I really like this situated awareness of using the pattern language in this lens of saying, okay, going acquire. We've completed one spark, set it to the side, do another one. Till I have enough sparks that I have something to do with them. Now I go backwards and I'm using all of my sparks, but I'm using them together to generate, well, to find my place, right? Because that's also where we talked about earlier. It's finding that place in grace, that personal pocket, and getting into that pocket with the sparks, using them, building them, stoking them, giving them hearths so that they can hold the flame. Transformation.
I just had to share this image from Google. Can you see that
Let's see.
on the shared screen?
Ah, yes. Nice.
Like that looks very familiar to me, and it seems apropos that would pop up during this conversation.
Uh-huh. Yes. Absolutely. So you could take this on your Substack and use this as a means of just creating articles. Like just tell the story one circle. You got an article. Tell
Right.
or do 4 circles and tell an article about the way those 4 circles interact. And that just use that as the means of generating artifact. And then you can go backwards. Okay, yes, I guess backwards would be to tell multiple perspectives in one. Forwards would make you just one artifact. And so I'm spitballing freedoms of playfulness to use the icon. Because that's part of the game for me, I guess, that what I want to look at is that we've got an understanding of this symbol that is embodied how we use it, but we've barely scratched the surface. Like there's no limit to what we can do with this thing, and we can get as nuanced and technical or as simple and easy as we desire. But to have many uses is the point. It shows other people the game, the infinite game. That we have all this stuff, but that's barely scratching the surface. Join the game. Right. Oh, you're here. We have so much stuff, but we've barely scratched the surface.
Right.
Game, you know. And that's yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when I tell a story of and I think this is maybe part of the problem with talking about the building of the project and talking about the project itself is, well, I'll scratch that. When you speak in terms of freedoms, that resonates with people more. When you speak of the project, you're speaking of the restrictions. Restrict yourself to this. Can't help but do that. You really can't. And that's hard for people to deal with. Whereas to speak of the freedoms, to be active in your freedoms, that resonates with people automatically.
Now, as always, there are freedoms in how this pattern is used, and that it's not an either or, like, well, freedoms are constraints. It's rather these are just options for people to choose for where they're at, what they're trying to get at, because they're both useful and they're both very commonly useful in so many ways. So it's probably best possibly to get a dialectic of the both and shifting between, right? Intention over contention. If they're in the circle, you must contend with their presence. If you intend their presence, there's no contention. is the concept.
Yes. My conscious mind is kind of seizing up on me, but I'm seeing if I can engage with this material with my unconscious mind more freely, uh, and just keep rolling. Tensions. So you were talking about contention in terms of there is a contention to restriction.
Uh-huh.
Okay. 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 And there is a intention. Well, I mean, we could talk about the intentions of freedom. They don't feel quite as paired to me.
May I turn the object a bit?
Yeah.
The perspective is that constraint and freedom occupy the same space, and that it's to move into one isn't to get rid of the other. It's still around in some ways, and so it's more that there's an exaggeration of one, or there's an exaggeration, but they're both always present. And so the philosophy, at least, is to say, well, we're just going to do freedom and there's no constraint, isn't as true as to say we can be really free, but we're going to run into some constraints. Or to say we're going to be all constraint isn't as true as to say we're going to be really constrained, but we're still going to have to exercise. So that's the philosophy, and in it there is a position that this enables both more freedom and more constraint to approach it in this perspective, and
Right.
that to seek to limit oneself to one or the other gives one less of
Right.
either.
Right.
Because they're generative.
So
Coupling.
it sounds like you were giving a preference for a foundation of freedom and adding constraints on top of that, rather than starting of a foundation of constraint and building on top of that. Was I hearing you correctly?
To take what you just said, and then to combine, and say that both are valid, and it's up
Okay.
to you doing it in what context. And it's person and situation oriented about which is better.
Okay.
But they're
Okay.
both available now, so
Right.
so it's choose. Which one do I want? Which feels more fit?
Right.
So
Okay.
those are different results, and
Yeah.
that's we want that ability
Mhm.
to.
I wonder what I was hearing then, because I thought I heard a preference, but that's okay. I guess I may have been projecting a preference because I usually grip preferences.
Yeah, so it's like the preference would be situational. Like
Okay.
if I was one person who didn't have friends yet, and I wanted to get into the liminal commons, like, and get all that I could out of it really quick, I might join the Project Township and follow these like constraints about how to employ the freedoms that I have here as like a training regimen, like a fire march, like a F3, right? Sort of scenario where it's exercise. You're doing it. You're consistent. You're locking in, And then at the end, when that breaks, the training wheel comes off. I then go in and I get it. I get what's going on here. Like I get the basics, and so I learn them quick. Or I could follow my freedoms and I can learn them quick, or it would take a long time and not get a complete picture for a long time. So it's a gamble. And so dependent upon what a person prefers, like do I want it in a package that I have to detach from? Or do I want to slowly build attachments over time?
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. Boy. Let me just go get some water and maybe a
Okay.
snack and give my
Word.
brain a chance to catch up. I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. Word. Fleuron, move.
Oh, yeah.
What's your vibe on?
Wow. I have been reflecting that I have been living hardcore survivor warrior mode for like exactly 7 years. So, and I have actually different scale of the finance, meaning I'm going to have quite a lot of money. Actually, that's a lot of money. I mean, I'm suddenly having bunch of money than most of the people I get to see. Actually, that's actually the case, isn't it? Most people I walk around, they don't have this much of amount of money.
And they have less time.
Yeah, and far less time. Yeah, they don't have much freedom. So yeah, I actually like I give myself like 500 euro per month or 700 euro per month for myself. And I could actually double that amount, 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could allow myself to visit some event to meet interesting people in my yeah, I will stay still frugal and like be selective on what I want to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty cool place to be reflecting from, you know. It's a good
Mhm.
it's a good position to occupy. And I don't know what it means to deserve a thing. Like ontologically, does that exist? But I think it's cool that you have it and that the things you have done with your life have brought you to this position. Fuck yeah.
Mhm.
I look forward to what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, Thomas, like, yes, Thomas has never lived like this. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, on my standard, I'm like, hey, man, I'm trying to fit him, like, in my standard, like, hey, man, just go starve and just go program until you die. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's gonna work for the most people. It's also I'm also asking that because I'm treating myself in that vibe.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Nah, that's it's a hard sell. Like I call it the death dance, this mode of living where you let go of the protectiveness, that shell of protectiveness, and you just go fucking do it. Just go live and just do your thing. Don't worry about it because you can figure it out when you're on the edge. I was like this, like dancing with death, because that's where a lot of people die, is right there. And so it's not for everyone. That's, I think, a great part of why people avoid this path, is they can see how close to the edge you're willing to walk, how much faith you have to walk there with confidence, clarity. I don't know about fearlessness, but let's say a minimization of fear. It's not for
Uh,
all.
yeah, it's not normal. Yeah, people are like freaking out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanna stay there, living like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I walked that for a long time, and I crashed pretty hard. And that from that crashing pretty hard, I saw that I wanted to try to learn other path that these people are stuck in. Like I went from Death Dance, just doing my thing, giving no fucks, to caring in a different way. Like I'm like, I want to try this society thing out. And I still want to do it my way, but I want to see what it holds, because I didn't, like, my whole life, avoided it. Like, I paid taxes for the first time this year, but in my whole life, and
Wow.
it was very little. It was not a lot, and that was an interesting experience for me. Like, I will decide next year if I will do it again, but it was
Wow.
a thing. I did it. And so I'm looking at this like the Pokemon thing. That if I'm going to show up and to offer my gift, I need to find certain layers of access to the societal endeavor that are suited to me specifically, and hence the therapist license, which I just can't get through other means. I can still, like, life coach, but I miss that. Miss that for you. Miss it every day. Oh my goodness.
Wow. Sometimes I get a little peek into how completely different our lives are, Reed.
Ah, this is the power of the township, you know?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. I really like, you know, I will miss. I already miss the township. I've missed the township for some time. Like when I spoke
Wow.
about anticipating this event, it's because I've realized that I'm missing it. If I'm missing it while I'm doing it, then in some
Then it's
sense it's
missing.
wrong. Yeah. And either
Yeah.
this is me or this is us. But if I'm feeling it, and James or you are feeling it, like, it just seems like the thing. Once the membrane breaks, the cells
Yeah.
drift.
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but that's fine, because that's growing
Yeah.
up.
It's part of the
That's
process.
yeah, yeah.
Well, then in conjunction with our earlier conversation, that all makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't know about the rest of you, but if I was in a holding pattern, then I wasn't really contributed fully to the township in the first place. And so I wasn't contributing optimally. And
None, none of us are holding the pattern. Yes, we need to expect it.
okay, I was going to speak for myself. I'm the
Yeah,
only problem here.
I feel it. I dig it, and I
Yeah.
want to agree, because you are for the part that you held. You are definitely the problem for the part you held, and I am the problem for the part I held.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't feel sad. I don't feel brokenhearted. I don't feel like there's something being lost. And if anything, I feel like something's being reborn.
Word. Yeah. Yep. 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 And it's being reborn right to a pretty opportune time.
Right.
Because like Project Township got us into community with
Mhm.
others like us, right?
Yes.
Here we are.
Yes.
We have the means of communication, of mutual tools. Like we'll figure it out
Yeah.
here. Like, and it's open to all of us to whatever degree we have time for, space for,
Yes.
and deep interest for. Like not really doing the things we don't have deep interest for. I
Right.
guess, and really
Freedom, right?
freedom, doing the thing.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
for myself, I noticed I missed it, and I'm realizing the ways I've been unraveling it in myself by interacting in the liminal commons. Because to go and interact in it, I had all these training wheels from the
Ooh.
project. All this like, well, we've got a
Gotcha.
version of this, and so I go interact with someone, or a group, or a call, and I'm just kept. We've got a version of this. We've got a version of this, and that just
Right.
got tiresome because like our version is this less complete than their version. Especially, it's like, oh well, it's more of a training wheel than their version. They've made
Wow.
more progress with just the part. I'm not talking about
Wow.
the whole thing, but just the
Okay.
part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in that, like, okay,
Wow.
so instead I started stepping to their language. And then if there was a language that could be found that sort of encapsulated my language and their language, then switch to that language. And so it was just like a moving between these different ways of expressing the same conceptual space that the training wheel got me into. But then it's a matter of letting go of the training wheel and exploring the space. Right? It's
Yes.
really complex. And
Mhm.
training wheels are sparks. They led me to a space. Then I let them go and explore freely. Uh, and so from that, just doing that, like I've encountered most, if not all, like different versions, different 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 patterns for the patterns that we're using, that spread all
Yeah.
over the place, like all
Yeah.
over the place, not concentrated in the same way, because that would make it a training wheel.
Mm.
Spread out.
Right.
That's the tool. There's all that space between the nodes that is filled with doing.
Mm.
We compress it down to this little icon, this little map. So here it is, right? And you
Right.
just keep coming back to this while you're doing the whole picture, and this will show you in your mental landscape the consistency of whole picture in relation to this icon.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm hearing how you've been on a journey of, on the one hand, taking our parts or mini games to other people, finding they have a better, more completed version of that mini game, but not of the meta game.
Mhm.
And so, and you mentioned how that has been a kind of part of your unraveling of the township. Because, well, what it arises in me is, yeah, if we are, what, I don't know, it's like there is a way in which the only way we bring Project Township to people is if we can somehow get beyond the mini games with people and to the metagame. which is not a move, as you were saying earlier, when you were talking about death dance, it's not a move everyone is willing to take,
Uh-huh.
because there is something kind of threatening about the metagame,
Uh-huh.
because it threatens all our assumptions, it
Uh-huh.
threatens our foundations,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, that's
Dances.
exactly the kind of issue I've been preparing myself to deal with
Uh-huh.
what I've been calling, the unity of Christ and the unity of the commons, I suppose, because I know I'm going to be dealing with regular people who, as we've been saying, are scared of letting go of their assumptions. Um, so I have to kind of, in a very, or at least the process I'm envisioning, at least, is a kind of careful, almost calculated, but not in a mathematical way, but in a sort of tensioned way, I suppose is the best way to say it. Uh, you know, if you have a scale with 4 arms, or even, I suppose, 8 arms, then it becomes a matter of calculation, not just moving things back and forth to get them to balance. And trying to decide, okay, how can I introduce these parts one at a time in a way that's interesting, captivating, as minimally threatening as possible, and yet acknowledges the threat that's coming and looming, because you can't just ignore it. Yeah, something like that. That's not the whole of it, but that's some of it, at least.
So it's the thought for the project, like, so the project's died to us, is what's being said, or maybe different language. Whatever, how the project, the circle is broken.
Yeah.
The circle was a shell. We hatched out of the shell.
Yes.
Now we're free to go move.
Right.
But what's left behind is the blueprint for an egg, right?
Yeah.
The genome of an egg, and it's up to us to come to our own free decision to what degree we want to invest into reconceiving that egg from the blueprint.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah.
there's a right resurrect. To what degree do we want to contribute to other people being resurrected into that spirit, or resurrect that spirit with them for others?
Interesting.
Like, or even for ourselves, if we get to that point where it's like, well, that's the whole thing. But if it's being viewed as this educational tool where others can and use it as a training wheel for long enough till it breaks for them, then they move on.
Right.
Bigger picture.
Right.
Then we would be the ones facilitating that, if that was something that we cared to do.
Okay.
And
What I find myself, sorry, go ahead.
Well, this thing is, it doesn't have to be that way, but it could.
Yeah. What I'm feeling, at least for a season, is the moving forward of the waterfall, the flowing with the sparks that I've set aside during the fire march, and take them as long as they take me until I encounter an opportunity to fire march with someone, and to draw from the pattern only as much as their interest directs without feeling any compulsion to go beyond that. And I actually find that very exciting and interesting.
Very resonant signal. That vibe checks with me.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And so for me, then, that raises the question on these meetings at these specific times in the approaching, what's the season look like?
Very good question.
But yeah, well, yep, it's going to become the 6th month. So it's like, what's the coming season? To move back into that seasons of being concept of like the different mode shifts between seasons as we go. Or not even to use that, right? Freedoms. Be very loose about what's the coming season hold for this.
You know, we've had seasons of rest for several years. Maybe this is a different kind of season. Maybe this is the season of freedoms. And it's about exploring what the project looks like, not as a constrained rule building process, including the rule of when we're supposed to show up, and a process of instead exploring the freedoms of showing up when the freedoms dictate it. The freedom dictates the movement rather than the rule.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it's like there's 4 seasons that have rules attached. The cycle is like you just move from rule to rule to rule to rule to rule to rule. There's a 5th season, which is a variable. This is the season of freedom that can just be a dial from rest up to freedom with activation, right? Because rest is still a season of freedom, but it's without being active into the field. So this is turning it up. Explore your freedoms that you're aware of now. And so this season, this 5th season, can go anywhere. It can pop up at any time. It's the variable, and so it's a break from the rule, but with a do whatever you want sort of vibe.
Right.
Season of freedom is so it's the same thing as a season of rest, I'd say, but
Okay.
with just a turn on the dial. Instead of down, it's going up. Same basic space, but up. It's just follow your own rule. Higher freedom, more discernment for rule. Either way, season of freedom.
Yeah.
To be explored. It's like I would like to be more free, just in general. I'm not saying like from this meeting, saying I would like to be more free to attend the other events that are starting to populate the Liminal Commons calendar.
I would love you to have that freedom.
I would love my friends to have the same freedom to the degree they could, and to see them at those events.
Right.
I would rather see them at an event that we are both deeply interested in, and then to do the game of that event together.
Yes.
Ways that enrich us both because our interest led us there, and we had the time to go.
Yeah. It's good. Hmm. Okay.
But I also want the freedom for overlap and just vibe check-in between
Right.
friends to be available
Yeah.
uh, as a
Absolutely.
real time thing. Yeah,
Mhm.
word.
Yeah. That's all completely resonant.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm gonna be getting Substack going as well.
nice.
It's it's going to be very much on my own interests. It's not going to really talk
Yeah.
about Project Township at all. Uh, Maybe at some point, not too distant future, would start talking about Project Township. But
Well, as the freedom
yes,
leads.
uh-huh. I want to build a context for it in my own writing, uh, like to lay the foundation.
Yeah.
Say now here is
Oh,
this
that's interesting.
concept that floats the whole thing.
That's a great freedom.
Uh,
Yeah. Like I'm not just trying to use that term as much as possible. I'm just discovering its usefulness. Um, because I could see myself, I could see my language, my process doing the same thing. Um, being an arrival, a discovery, if you will, of getting to that freedom and how to do it. Because interestingly enough, it would be I've got these two projects that would kind of be interconnecting because it's the unity of the commons and the unity of Christianity that would be using the same underlying mechanisms that I will not be talking about. I will just be using. But on the one hand, I could see that project to the left, to one side, breaking off on talking about the commons or Project Township. On the other hand, I can see it just being the free continual activation of the space in conversation with those who are interacting with these projects and are interested in interacting, asking questions, and are you know exploring the freedoms of that topic. Um, yeah,
I appreciate how freely you are articulating your freedoms in the moment, and even the recognition of the repetition of the use said, well, I am free from the repetition, but I'm choosing to use of my own free will as an exercise. So I just want to note that like in that move, I saw like the spike of realizing a constraint and then transcending it to a freedom and using it anyway, right? Like, now more freedom by using the
right.
constraint.
That's good. I like it.
Um,
I like having that freedom.
It's a good freedom.
Yeah.
That's inspired me into my own work, which is to play with language in ways that alter people's cognition.
Mm,
Uh, like, oh, well, that could be a fun game for people to play. That when they come into uh, alignment on something like, let's say, play, like we've been using freedom, for instance. When
right.
they come into alignment with play, now they pay close attention to wherever play occurs in the scenario. And they call it out vocally as play
Ah,
every single time. And so they keep
yep.
repeating it to emphasize its proximity in
Mm,
moment. And so it's like impressing into the group a reinforcement of the play,
mm,
how to really play it out in a playful way,
hmm.
to find slack and play about with it. Like
Oh, I see what you did there. Because the freedom is to not necessarily always be to stay in tension, but to be intentional about laying out slack in a act of freedom. I'm
And
very
then
happy with that move. Huh. Okay. Hmm.
so the slack is the play that you're given, right? That's the degree of play.
Yes, it is. That's
Right?
brilliant. That
Oh,
connects on so many levels, and I love it. That's gorgeous.
it's also a warning system for when you're about to start stretching your tension, right?
Hmm.
Running out of play because you're getting close to an edge.
Running out of play. Oh my. Hmm.
And the play is the secure distance from the pocket, from the center of the pocket of grace that is that person's personal
Hmm.
place in
Yes,
relation
it
to
is.
God. How far can I go from the center before I leave its
Yeah.
right? That's the play.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yes. So I was beginning to feel a tickle that this is um butting up against what G's been doing in my life lately, and that confirmed it.
So, love to hear
So
fireworks.
again, what?
I said, I love to hear fireworks.
So this is just going to sound like a broken record, and it's because I'm so hard-headed. But he just keeps playing with the idea of play. And so, I'm getting ready for this missions trip. And of course, I buckle down and I try to maximize the amount of preparation I do. And he just keeps going, okay, it's time to play. Go play. Just listen to whatever you want to listen to. Just play. And I'm like, what is this? Because because I there's a part of me that really wants to rise up and say I don't like play. And what's happening there is something like self-sufficiency on the egoic level. And because the ego keeps trying to complete and drill down and finalize and be ready enough. And what play is about is trust in my mind. It's trusting G in a sense that he will let me know when I'm running out of play. That if I am going to Brazil tightly wound with no freedoms of play, I will not be free to play the game G has for me there.
That's the arena.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the arena, that awareness, and then be
Mhm.
occupied that space in the moment.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything we've just said has been training wheels leading up to that
Hmm.
space to just hold, to know all the other stuff's present, but not to focus on them anymore.
Hmm.
Right? To
Yeah.
do the work,
Which
right?
again is trust. The
Yes,
knowing that it's there, but that it's not here in front of me is trust. Hmm. Yes.
yes.
Hmm. Wow.
Whew.
There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah. And so, in the vision of having a genome of project to be resurrected by new inhabitants, they would, in a sense, be fast-tracked into practicing
Gino.
this.
Gino.
Yes.
You beautiful wordsmith, you.
Um,
Because it's a gnome.
yes.
It's a very small copy of G. Wow.
And then it grows until it breaks, and then it's just G in
Wow.
relation to
Wow.
the person. So
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, dude.
like this is such a potent brew that we're in, the space. And we got into it so easily, right? So fluidly.
Right.
That's what the genome can offer people.
Okay.
Learning
Okay.
that, so that they can do that with others in the liminal commons to their best ability.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
But only if that's useful and interesting for us to do. We've got our own callings to put the answer to first, I would say.
Okay.
Is an understanding you came
Right.
to. Like I think it's important not to immediately reattach to
Okay.
it, but to return to it when it's the space for it.
Yes. Okay. And clearly, or not, the space for it can be very temporary. Again, that's the vibe, whatever the vibe is.
Yep.
Okay.
The language of vibe. Yeah. All right. And so I said I had an anticipation something like this was coming, but it wasn't an expectation.
Right.
It still was oh, okay. Well, that changes things, sort of moment for me.
Yeah.
But a pretty quick dialing that, yeah, you're right. It changes things into this other thing that's still the thing, but just bigger and more complex and more freedoms. Okay, cool. Sort of thing.
Right.
So I still have that surprise in me, but it's not like a thing. It's just like, oh yeah, okay. Some adjustments, but it feels right, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you're recording, because I would like to show this to Chrissy and Jim as well, these were the things that we said, sort of thing. And what are your thoughts? Like, yeah.
I never don't intend for us to record. It just happens sometimes that we don't.
I've been transcribing into my voice.
Okay.
And so we got the recording as well.
Yeah.
We should, I mean, Jim, we already know where Jim's headed. Jim is headed the same direction we're headed. This discussion. So it's more to communicate to Chrissy, or for whatever we want to. Well, let's put it on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. It's like I'm going on this 10-day road trip tomorrow. And it's I'm just not gonna bring my computer. I'm not
Unplug completely.
yeah, I'm just gonna because we're gonna be camping, right? A lot of these places.
Yeah.
option. So just let it go and see what comes up. Like really just turn towards um, the earth around me and
Mm,
to my relationship with my brother and
nice.
relationship with G, and just like try to just be there. I've been really in this digital space a lot lately.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to have the shell break today,
Right before that.
the day
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
That is. Well, I mean, there's a lot of um what's the word? Things that look like happenstances but are not happening right now.
Or
I'm sensing a lot of them.
fingers from above.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, there's just like when we Christians, and maybe other people do this as well, get ready to really jump into something of great significance as we see it. And we notice a lot of what we will call resistance sometimes happening that we're like, okay, we're doing the right thing then. There's resistance here, you know. Um, we call it spiritual warfare sometimes, or we call it we'll use terms like we are getting ready to take ground from the enemy, and the enemy doesn't like that, and so he's throwing whatever distractions at us, whatever discomforts he can at us to try to dissuade us. But as long as we stand firm, he has no choice but to watch us just do what we're going to do. So long as we're standing firm, right? So long as we don't give in to the fear and the anxiety and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And to
Uh-huh.
me, those are a kind of a reverse synchronicity, if you will, an anti-synchronicity, um, an anti-vibe, if you will.
Huh.
It's the its existence's left hemisphere trying to keep the right hemisphere from vibing.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if any of that slots into any uh worldview or pattern you have, but to some degree that doesn't matter. It's just this is my story and I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
So
uh,
then, if I get it right, I just want to see if I've got it.
yeah,
That that all right. So there is a pattern in Christian culture or just community or somewhere in the Christian realm. There's
right.
this pattern that pops up in which when there is like a spiritual move being made,
Hmm.
that resistance pops up in the world, and the
Hmm.
Christian move is to come together to put up the, the spiritual armor that includes the
Yeah,
group, and
yeah.
there is this insularity from the externality and a designation
Mm,
of externality as enemy. Like, well, we are insulating, we are putting up the spiritual armor, the other is enemy at this time, but G is not the other, G is above and beyond the other. So we are together in grace. Is that the idea of
that
what
was
it's
an excellent use of the Christian language.
This is war of art. This is so in the pattern language, because you said you didn't know, and you're right, it doesn't matter if I have a corresponding thing or not. It may be I'm
Mhm.
completely off base, but this is my just what appears to be a description of the move. In my
Right.
pattern language, it's each pattern is the notation of a move, of a changing of space in the way that changes context that then affects content. and what happens when you process content through the pattern now after you've made that move. And so the move of War of Art is to change the space in exactly this way. Our art of game is full, open, honest communication between all parts of the whole at all places on the platform, all the time. Art of game. To switch the move to War of Art is to say that the network of communication itself is enemy, right? Because the other's the network that holds it together. So that itself is enemy. Every group now is insulated and interacting with the interface as if it's enemy. Therefore, every other group is enemy as a consequence because they communicate through that interface. And so
and that enemy is something like discouragement and disbelief, which is, it's very effective. I mean, whether it's an actual supernatural being doing these things, or it is just happenstance that triggers a faith response in the group, the results are beneficial, right?
War of Art as a pattern, like all patterns, are just a thing. Like, to invoke it is not to say bad or good. It's just to say this is a thing that's done, that a lot of things do all the time. Like, I do it regularly. And it's often for fortification, for purpose, right? Just like, there's this sort of like resistance to my well-being right now. I'm going to fortify. And in fortifying, right, there's now a contention involved. But so every pattern is both a tool and a weapon. And you can use every tool part as both a tool and a weapon. You can use every weapon part as both a tool and a weapon. Right? So there's still usefulness for parts of weapons, but there's still dysfunction for parts of weapons. Same with tools. They function and dysfunction. And in that, the War of Art, in that notation, just a move. It's not a this or that. It's just about what you do with it when. Does it stave off discouragement? Good tool. Is that your intention?
Right.
Awesome. Did it cause more trouble down the line? It's a weapon. Was that trouble that caused down the line leading to greater fortification? It's a tool again. Right? Is the sort of concept of figuring out how to dance with the resistance to get the effect to greater nuance. But it's more of a weapon the further you take it.
That feels extremely connected to these Unity projects I've been discussing building, because if I can talk about that in this context, this idea of, how did you put it, that there are the consequences of our belief systems. Are they creating immediate or short-term or long-term disadvantage? Or are they creating immediate or short-term or long-term advantage? And to what degree of which? You know, what is the soundboard? Soundboard is something I'm going to constantly be bringing up in these, because it's just so useful. It's such a powerful analogy. And of course, eventually I'll be able to map that soundboard to the icon, and be like, and this is what I was actually talking about. But if I can do that, then I can create a common ground between almost anybody. You know, so far as people are willing to make that move with me. That's the big thing I've realized is, man, there's just going to be a lot of people that just don't want to get on board because there's moves they don't want to make. And so that's why I feel I have to be very intentional, while recognizing the contention of these various moves and their significance to people, and how volatile they can be for people. And so if I can handle them carefully, then I believe at least that gives me a better opportunity to give people in turn the opportunity to accept what I'm saying. It's my hope.
That's all we can work with, you know.
Right.
We have a call from G. It lives in the moment with us. And really, it's just like that. It's an immediate guidance thing that we just do as we feel called and do our best.
Right.
Who knows what the outcome will be? Because
Right.
what we think is the point isn't always necessarily the point of
It's
the move,
very true.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's there. If we do the move, the point happens, whether or
Yeah.
not we're aware of it.
That is one of the more controversial, I think, arguments I keep returning to. So one of the big uh, factions or splits in Christianity is what I could summarize, maybe oversimplify, but summarize as something like um, structure versus spirit. So, for instance, my good friend of mine that I've brought up in Polos before joined the Catholic Church because he believed that the church it must be the case that the church has to be structured. And if that is the case, then his job became, well, what church looks the most structured then? It's not necessarily his language, but that's what his language amounts to. And okay, I talked myself out of the conversation a little bit by accident.
I remember structure and spirit.
Right.
And
But I was trying to respond to something you said, and I've lost that.
I have two, but I'm not attached.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can find it, or find the next step at least.
I do need to exit in 5 minutes because I've been prepared for the camping trip tomorrow. I've got to go grocery shop.
Perfectly understandable.
Together.
I will be doing a lot of preparation tomorrow because I don't want to be packing for Brazil on the day before I do it. Well, are there any final thoughts, or should I try to get this final thought?
Get the final thought out, yeah, and
Okay.
then I'll thoughts, yeah.
Okay, so I think it is something like, well, I'll just play off of what I just was saying. That division in the faith. Oh, I know why we don't know what it was. It's because I never said it. It was something that sparked off of something you said. I don't know if I'll dredge it up, but I remember that much at least. So the issue with structure versus spirit is something like, well, I don't remember why I originally brought it up, but what I can bring it to is fear and control, which control can boil down to pride in many cases, because pride essentially is an attempt to control the self and those things around you. Interchangeable, depends on what your lens is, depends on which one is primary. But that is an argument I have to establish, that if you are trying to go by way of control rather than spirit, what are you fearing and what are you trying to control? because there is only one we fear, and that essentially is the spirit. Fear God only. Only shall you fear. And the idea is not anxiety, but deep, awe-inspiring respect. A fear that transfigures you when you meditate upon it from doing anything other than the good. Something like that. And but if you're building control, which he's the control, he's also the only one to fear, and he's the only one to be proud of. I'm giving everything to the spirit in that argument, right? And so it's like, are you, it's almost at that point, either here's what scares me is the realization that there will be people that will get that argument and will turn away. That terrifies me because of the implication, not to me, but to them.
Follow your call. The point
Right.
is not ours to hold. The point is ours to carry until it wants to go do its thing, like, and then it will, and that's it.
Well,
like be the
and what
voice.
did I just and what did I just get in saying? I talked about what is fear. Fear is the only one he's the only one you fear. Jesus the only one you fear.
Yep.
So already I can't be saying I have to worry about them now. I have to be anxious about them. No, I give that fear to him. I'm acknowledging that I have it, but I'm not going to be bound by it. And that's certainly something I've been going very deep with the realization of giving him everything lately. So yeah.
Yeah. Post this video. Yeah.
Okay.
I can sit here and talk to you for another few hours just on that parting note.
Right. Do you care if I put it on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, please.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Wide open. So I just want to offer a framing. It's not a take this frame and make it your frame. It's just like this is a frame that's in my head that popped up when you're talking about structure and spirit. I use logic and language as a means of gesturing towards two specific categories of structure and expression, I guess you could say, which moves between structures. So when I hear that, structure and spirit, okay, because this is something to do with tool and weapon, or rather weapon and tool in that light. Like a structure is a weapon and spirit's a tool,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, but in that, there's both tool and weapon form of weapons and tools. So that whole layer is tool, right? But they do different things together. So this longer layer in that, so we'd have structure, spirit, and then we'd have structure, spirit, then we'd have control and fear as the falling into the lower level of this. And right now we're falling into the weapon version of those things. So control is the weapon version of structure. Fear is the weapon version of spirit. That they're offering up to the higher levels and a surrendering to the higher levels that enables structure and spirit. But if you don't, the moment you stop surrendering to the higher levels, you're in control and fear, right? Because if you gave your fear to the spirit, then you're not in fear here, right?
Yeah.
If you honor the structure that the spirit communicates through to you, then you don't need to worry about controlling anything, right? Because you're just lighting you with the structure that's being communicated to you by spirit. You're letting go, actually, by surrendering to that structure. But also using that as like reliable, consistent means of communication. Receive the signal because of its structure, but the signal of spirit. That's freedom.
Yeah.
And so it comes in different forms, different expressions.
Man, that's just that thing that's resonating with me about that so deeply is it goes back to the beginning of the conversation. The freedoms and the constraints, and how they are both a part of the game board. They're both part of the game. And it's how you use them, using them, something like skillfully and wisely. Oh my gosh. OneDrive keeps screwing up, and I guess I gotta fix my laptop. Anyway, sorry. Just got a notification. Your OneDrive is 104% over. It's like it shouldn't be. I got two computers, and apparently they're not. Neither of them has OneDrive set up correctly because it keeps trying to back up massive amounts of information. So sorry, I just got completely derailed.
No worries.
I guess that's all I was trying to say, though, is that the structure that I'm. How do I say this? I saw this picture so vividly, but I lost it, and it was something like how there's always structure to our interactions with G, but there is also it comes back to two words I said while Branch was driving me around, which was that there's both this not reconstruction, but I'll use it because it's the same concept. There's simultaneously a reconstruction and a deconstruction when you begin reversing the flow from the constraints to the freedoms, because it's like you kind of have to take the parts and let them get rebuilt, or else they remain in a kind of stagnant form. It's not that what you built wasn't valuable. It's that its value is limited unless you give it its freedom to be reborn. Something like that. Well, I should probably let you go.
That's a perfect parting note.
Good.
Give freedom to be reborn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
man, buddy.
Yeah. It's like it's both a heavy and a light heart that my fingers are priming for the snap. You know? It's a symbolic thing. It's a
wow.
living
it
symbol.
Feels much heavier this time.
Yeah. Right?
Wow. Thank you for pointing that out. You're absolutely right.
I have an optional extension move after we do it. That I'm going to offer at the time to see if it sparks or it sticks. No expectation. It's just something that popped up to me. It's something that could be added.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for yours.
Yeah.
Like, wow. You've birthed so many new things into me. Or maybe I should say you've midwifed them into me. So I deeply, deeply appreciate your time.
So deep appreciation. Man, we walked here together.
Yeah.
Like there's a pro-midwifing of self other into self and other. It's like, how do you even discern at a point,
Yeah.
Just time spent.
Yeah. It's really good. All right, man.
I will be seeing you soon.
Good.
All right. So then it occurred to me that I want to pour a little out for the fallen homies. Like this is a thing to a living circle coming together and then breaking apart to come back together. But it's a symbol of the breaking apart part. That to shoot one off for the fallen, give a little heart tap.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. 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 All right, man.
All right. Have a
Thank you so
wonderful
much for
and a wonderful
blessings.
trip if I don't see you.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
And upload this recording.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.